Good morning, guten Morgen. I want to welcome you on behalf of Copyright Clearance Center to our annual town meeting on open access. I'm Christopher Kenneally, your host for this morning's program. Important developments in open access publishing reach scholarly publishing almost as regularly as waves to the shore. Publishers and their technology vendors must learn to read these incoming waves in order to anticipate their force and to prepare for when they will break. Like elite surfers, our teams are learning to live with constantly changing conditions. Wipeouts, sometimes spectacular ones, can be and often are a part of life in this environment. And of course, there are sharks in these waters. Every surfer, from the beaches of the Pacific to the Englischer Garten on Munich's Eisbach River, recognizes that riding the wave demands attention, balance, and courage. But to ride the wave in style is to go beyond technique and to find a relationship with the wave and all the change that it brings. That is what open access asks of all of us. Our conversations throughout this morning will take lessons from those who ride the waves ahead of us and are smoothing the way for those who will follow. A couple of things to know about our whole program today. We are tweeting this, and we will be having a hashtag CCC Open Access. You can follow Copyright Clearance Center at Copyright Clear. And we have today a three-part program. I'll tell you briefly about our agenda. This morning we will welcome Melinda Kenneway in just a moment. At 9:30 we have a brief program on compliance and reporting for open access. And then at 10 o'clock, we will have our town meeting, an open discussion, a very lively one, and we hope you will join us for that. But now I want to welcome Melinda Kenneway. Melinda, very good to see you.
Good to see you, Chris. Thank
Melinda
you.
Kenneway is Executive Director and co-founder of Kudos, online at growkudos.com. After completing a degree in experimental psychology at the University of Oxford, Melinda says she fell into scholarly communications. I think some of us know how that feels. And after a few weeks, though, found out there really wasn't anything else for her. She acquired extensive marketing skills through a 13-year career with Oxford University Press, rising to the position of marketing director of the Journals division. And in 2014, with David Summer and Charlie Rappel, she co-founded Kudos, which just this past September won the ALPSP Award for Innovation in Publishing. Congratulations on that award.
Thank you.
What we brought you here to talk about was the important shift in scholarly publishing, the way that power, the center of power, has moved in the direction of authors, and you're playing an important part in that.
Yeah.
Your work, though, isn't simply open access related, but I presume it's been driven by all those changes.
That's right. I mean, when I think back to when I left OUP, which is some 10 years ago now, open access was just starting to really take off. And I was responsible for leading a campaign that flipped one of our biggest, most profitable journals, Nucleic Acids Research, from a subscription journal to an open access journal overnight. So as the marketing director, I had to construct this campaign, think about the messages, think about how was I going to persuade authors who have never had to pay to publish with us before to suddenly pay when all the competing journals were subscription-based and you didn't have to pay.
That really turns the world upside down.
Totally, and it also made me realize how little I know or knew at that point about our author base. And exactly what they were looking for from a publisher. We had no information on who these people were, what they valued, so there was an enormous black hole in our knowledge.
So it really has taken publishing a long time to get to know those authors, and
Yes.
now they understand how critical they are to their continuing business. And briefly tell us what Kudos does, because what you are doing is, as I was saying in the introduction, establishing relationships, building trust, and also building reputation. Briefly describe how that works.
Yes, so Kudos is a platform to help authors disseminate their work, and also it helps them understand the impact of the sharing activities that they do. So we're looking at helping them really understand how to reach broader audiences and look at then what pieces of their work actually have impact. I think one of the things we're very passionate about is that the article is a very distinct piece of information, but it's a very technical piece of information. Is that actually what's having an impact in the world in terms of influencing science? Maybe it's the image, maybe it's the data set, maybe it's the video. So I think as publishers we need to start looking at other kinds of content in terms of helping people understand this technical content.
Right. Now, this is ultimately going to serve the authors, it'll serve the publishers. It's also important to the funders who have played such a role in driving open access forward. The mandates from Wellcome Trust, RC UK, and many others are a big part of that. And those same funders, the ones who are paying the APCs, the article processing charges, want to know about, as you say in the UK, value for money. And they're looking to understand the impact of these grants, not just in the lab, but in the real world. So what Kudos is doing is helping authors to document that impact.
It's beginning to. I mean, it can't solve that problem entirely by itself. And I think one of the other things that we're interested in is impact means different things to different people. You know, what one researcher might want would differ for another. Some may want media attention, others want citations, and I think it's helping authors understand what they need to do to achieve the specific goals that they have in mind. And of course those goals should be driven to some degree by what the funders want. And we've had some very interesting discussions with Wellcome Trust and RC UK and so on about what they're looking for, how do they measure impact, and actually they're not terribly clear about that, and they're trying to work it out. So there's a lot of work to be done there,
right,
to understand that ROI on research, and also this difficulty around short-term and long-term impact. Because what the Wellcome Trust said to me very clearly was, we're looking to understand influence. How does a piece of work influence other people, other research? And that can happen overnight. It can take 10 years. So how do you begin to track that? And I think another complex part of that argument is that a piece of research work is authored by many people increasingly and across multiple labs. So how do you assign the contribution of individuals to that piece of work? And I know there's work being done in the industry to try and help with that. So this whole idea of reputation assessment is something really sort of fascinating. I mean, just coming back to Kudos, we don't do that today. We have a very simple dashboard. We can show authors the impact of, you know, citations and downloads and click-throughs and altmetric data associated with their work. But the kind of big dream for us is beginning to combine all those things and look at other activities that the researcher does, other kinds of outputs, voluntary contributions that they make to the community through peer review panels, begin to combine all of those things to make more sense over the particular contribution that an individual's making. And that starts to get really quite complicated. There's a model that came out of the Becker Medical Library called the Becker model, which tries to begin to look at these different areas of reputation. You know, is this something we can develop algorithms for? I don't know. We're interested in looking at that. But this world of the impact factor is so simplistic, and it's so missing the richness of contributions that individuals are making. And I think particularly early stage career researchers as well, the current system very much favours those that are more established. And I think if we are to look at understanding impact and reputation in a fairer way, by really judging performance on this broader range of metrics, we're going to get to serve research better, I think.
Right. Well, in the citation that ALPSP gave you for the Innovation in Publishing Award, they mentioned the value of having an open community. Why is that important? And as part of your answer, tell us about the size of your community. How many people are you really reaching and working with now?
So this was a very kind of early part of our idea for Kudos, that we could see these emerging platforms for sharing research. So I'm talking about ResearchGate, academia.edu, Mendeley, but the sort of philosophy behind those platforms, it seemed to us, was creating quite sort of closed environments and outside of the existing industry. I think what makes Kudos a little bit different is that the three co-founders are all from the industry. We value publishers, we value universities, we value the role of funders, and we wanted to create a platform that was more open, so it would work across publishers, but also more engaged with the industry, helping move universities, funders, publishers forward by aggregating their effort around that author. So that's the kind of open philosophy. I think it's also, for me, it represents the next generation of software platform development, which is not to build these kind of big systems that we then expect people to come to, and we'll keep them on our site, and then we'll monetize that. I think the next sort of generation of software is much more integrated into the workflow in a very deep way. We call it our octopus at Kudos, our octopus strategy, which is to pop tools wherever people want to use them, but bring all that together. So we're not trying to constrain the sites people use at all. If they want to put their data on Figshare or Dryad, that's great. If they want to have a profile on Thomson Researcher ID or Orchid or Mendeley, that's fine. But somebody somewhere needs to give them the intelligence to say what is working for them. Where should they spend their time? And that's what we're doing. So we support author choice in deciding what resources work for them.
And that notion of author choice, though, is a dilemma for publishers. And while you've attracted thousands of authors and you've got several million articles that
Yes.
Are listed through Kudos, you've also attracted a pretty respectable group of publishers to work with. And they clearly must understand that what open access is doing is changing the relationship of their authors and turning them into customers. And they want to, I presume, provide some customer service.
Exactly. So here's how it is, I think, for publishers. We're working with about 50 now.
Give us a few names.
AAAS, Wiley, Taylor & Francis, Royal Society of Chemistry, American Society of Microbiology.
Maybe some of the people in the room here. I hope so. Yeah.
So a really good mix. One of the things that open access has created is this competition for authors. Sort of going back to my story at OUP, not only did I not know anything about our authors, I also had no idea what constituted a good author or a bad author, or how would I have any kind of reason to begin to build a relationship with this author. So that's kind of an idea that we brought into the Kudos platform to say it is a reality that publishers have to start competing now for authors much more than they've ever had to do before. So their brand, as well as the publication brand, are becoming important. And then they need tools to help build relationships with their authors. And that's exactly what Kudos provides. We're not a platform that distances ourselves. Publishers can come in, they can observe what their authors are doing, and then it's down to them to choose if they want to build on that and use that as a way to create a strong relationship.
Absolutely. So what the publishers are looking for is commitment from authors, and they're trying to build the trust that becomes necessary first to have commitment.
Exactly, but I think it's more than commitment. I think it's moving from a world where, that's another sort of shift that open access is bringing, where just publishing was enough. Publishing used to be enough, and then the open access movement came out, and then it has to be open. But that's not enough either. I mean, talk to Toby Green about OECD content, which has always been freely available online.
OECD, the Office of...
Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development.
Okay. a global nonprofit that publishes many, many materials.
All sorts
books,
of government
articles,
documentation, articles, books, a lot of data. It's always been freely available, and yet Toby has a business model for that called freemium. So he is very, very used to creating services that sit on top of that content that he can sell, and that add value as well. So for me, it's beyond access, it's beyond publishing, it's beyond access. It's now about getting users and readers and visibility for that author and their piece of work. And actually, I think, beyond, publishers have done a lot of work in this area in terms of the automated stuff, discoverability, tagging, and some of the semantic tools. CCC are developing your own. But I think the next battleground, if you like, is going to be around which publisher can deliver impact. And that's about dissemination on one hand. I also think it's about imaginative formats of publishing. Had a great meeting with the American Maths Society yesterday and looked at MathJax, which is a new tool for visualizing maths, making maths beautiful, they call it. And we're working in partnership now with Research Square for producing videos for authors on the Kudos platform, with Research Media for doing lay summaries, infographics. So there's this really important role now for publishers to start looking at other kinds of content to help drive impact, because I think we're all going to be accountable to authors for making sure their work gets applied.
Well, and all of that, though, is considerable investment on the part of publishers, videos, infographics, and so forth. But it can start with something really simple. You were telling me that there's a way for the publishers now to tweet their congratulations.
Yes, oh, exactly. I mean, it is small steps that can have quite a big impact. So in terms of the publishers tweeting congratulations, you're meaning through the Kudos platform.
That's right.
Exactly. They can see an author's had great success. They've maybe sent some notices to their colleagues, and they can retweet that to their networks, which are extensive, and tell the author that they're doing that. Something else on our roadmap is to be able to reflect that publisher activity on the author's dashboard ultimately. So then the author can see the support the publisher is giving them is made visible to them. And I think that's important too, because I think a lot of authors, particularly in the journals world, it's different in the books world, are unaware of quite how much activity and support they do get from publishers. So we'd like to surface that and make that visible.
Well, finally, Melinda Kenneway, it sounds as if, in a way, publishers are helping authors build their own brand. How does this kind of activity help the publishers build their brand?
I think it's about, we're very careful to work very closely with publishers that that are clients of ours to make sure their brand is at the forefront. I think this comes back to this octopus approach that we have. We are not trying to create a brand that authors come to and say, I must use Kudos. We're creating a brand that provides author intelligence on the services that they're getting and using from universities, publishers, and funders. So when we send invites to authors to join our service, they're all branded from the publisher. The pages that the author builds to promote their publication are branded with the publisher. So we're quite sort of conscious of trying to get that balance right.
Well, getting balance right is what we try to do at Copyright Clearance Center as well, so we understand how difficult that is. I want to thank Melinda Kenneway. Thank you so much for speaking with us this morning.